Good morning and greetings of the day to everyone in this virtual conclave. Thank you, Professor Vishwajit Patnaik, Professor Kalyan Shankar Ray, and the organizers in ASBM University for inviting me as a keynote speaker in this virtual event being attended by the present and the future of our great nation. The moot question before me was what to cover and what to leave while talking about the fast evolving banking landscape in India. Thanks to Professor Kalyan Shankar Ray, who made my task easy. When he decided to include in my introduction the Economic Times Digital Warriors Award that I won for the best transition during pandemic, I chose to focus my talk around the new perspective the pandemic has brought to leadership, banking services, and the new normal as to how the banks function now. So let me divide my address under the two broad points: the exigency leadership and the new normals in banking post-pandemic. I have been speaker or a panelist in umpteen webinars, panel discussions, conclaves since last 15 months or so. One question that is invariably asked to me, either by the moderator of the program or the audience, that when suddenly faced with pandemic and a nationwide lockdown in March, April last year, how did SBI's Global IT Center, one of the largest in the world, manage to run uninterrupted? The answer, of course, lies in the story of apt exigency leadership, which I believe will be a takeaway for many future leaders in my audience here. Remember, what was the scenario when we were suddenly faced with the pandemic outbreak and the announcement of nationwide lockdown? People were advised not to move out of homes. Strict vigil by police authorities on movement of people. No public transport. Eateries and restaurants were closed. You may be knowing, mostly techies of state A, they are working in state B. Techies of state C, they are working in state D. And for their survival, they are dependent on these eateries and restaurants only, which were closed during the lockdown. There was atmosphere of fear. So at the same time, our essential services, they had to run. And the essential services also included the bank services. So banking services, branches, ATMs, online and mobile banking, etc. must be available. That was the dicta. And at the top of it, government announced COVID benefits. They had to reach our citizens through banks only. So banks had double the task which they do in normal times. So then, when all these services were being run, what did they mean for SBI? So to give you a sense of the scale of SBI, the scale at which SBI operates, let me show some of the figures here. So largest bank in the country in terms of deposits, advances, customers, banking outlets. Then how many customers SBI has? 45.92 crores. How many ATMs and CDMs? We have 62,617 ATMs. Then presence across 32 countries. Peak transactions per day, 27 crore transactions have passed through a single day for SBI. And per second, there were 9,831 transactions that day. And transactions on non-branch channels are around 93%. So this is the kind of scale SBI talks about. So now you can imagine that during pandemic times, or when the pandemic actually started, how we were supposed to operate. So let me divide my task and the way I'll explain it into three phases. Phase one was till mid-April, when we reached a minimum working arrangement in a difficult situation. Significant remote work problem persisted, such as inadequate equipment and infra, inaccessible applications, and poor knowledge of both. But at least the lights were on, and critical business operations, a little impaired sometimes, continued. So that was April 2020. The second phase was till June 2020, And when we worked towards improving that situation, a work from anywhere strategy was worked out, remote work infra was procured, security was strengthened, and the online meeting technologies and tools were used to the fullest. The goal was to ensure that our people get a stable and secure work environment and also feel connected and informed in these difficult times. The third phase, that continues even today, is when we have decided to not let the crisis go waste and are deliberating on the continuation of some of the practices that we were compelled to implement to tide over the crisis. They range from HR to stronger data security practices, from logistics to guaranteeing high speed and affordable internet to our workforce, and many others. So, what made the exigency leadership work? So, first, it was about the BCCP, business continuity and change planning, because the normal or the standard BCP that every organization draws wouldn't work in an unprecedented situation like this. So, without losing any time, we identified 800 out of our 6,000 resources. Those 800 were called our mission critical resources for our crown jewel applications. So they were identified. Then we created structured layers for agile decision making, message transmission, and execution. For example, we had 4 groups: the senior leadership, the middle management, team leads, and all employees. So, how the communication flew, that was very important. So, we listed down all the reasons that could hamper working of this mission critical set of people. So, apart from possible virus attack, the reasons ranged from transport, travel from a different zone, police and municipality restrictions on movement, food, stay, health and hygiene concerns, etc. We made sure all these were fully addressed. Each channel team was divided into 2 or 3 groups, each group functioning from a different location, so that if one group is affected by the virus, the work is continued by others. Another very important part was right communication. Let me tell you, in the time of exigency, it is the most critical aspect, and one has to take care how the communication is being done by leaders and from down to upwards. The communication to perfectly blend direction giving, meaning making, and empathy. In such a crisis, seeking compliance will be least effective. Regular communication with staff to inspire and energize them, to keep their morale high, to allay fears, to spread the do's and don'ts regarding social distancing and personal hygiene, and to invite their suggestions on the plans the management was implementing to overcome the challenges. Another thing is using virtual communication technology aptly, and also give priority to educating your people on usage of these tools. No scope for communication gaps, clarity on role and delegation, who will do what. Another thing is put in place an effective mechanism for new ideas, suggestions, feedback from all levels. Last but very important, never forget to appreciate the heroism that your people are displaying. Make it a point to let them know that their health and safety is of utmost importance. So this was about the exigency leadership, what I experienced and what I shared with you. Now let me come to the second part of my lecture. The impact of COVID-19 on digital economy has been really complex, and it is multifaceted. So it has brought in several new normals for the banking industry. So let's talk about them. I think I'll take up only 5 of them. So one is the way individuals and organizations pay has changed. Second, digital lending, which was an exception, now it has become a norm. Then the innovations in contactless banking. Then work from home is picking up, and cyber security. Really, we have to put up a stronger fight against cyber security and financial frauds than we had done ever before. Coming to the first point, the way individuals and organizations pay. I'm sure every individual in this conclave would have adopted next level of digitization as to how he or she has been doing banking and making payments. Those who had been doing, branch banking, they would have tried ATM. Those who had been using their debit card on ATM to draw cash for spending, they would have started swiping card in POS machines, or in shops or departmental stores, or better still, would be ordering grocery and other items over e-commerce. So I need not elaborate much on the push digital payment systems got from COVID. Very few people took the risk of visiting a branch to do their routine banking transactions. Even in rural areas, we had experienced that people were going for that Aadhaar enabled payment system rather than visiting a branch and standing in queue. So let me add another thing. So this is about the individuals, which we already know. They had adopted next level of digital. Now businesses, the corporates and governments, they were not behind in migrating to digital. Our YONO business application saw a spurt in new registrations for online banking. It was from large and medium corporates and also MSMEs. Not only the payment and collection transactions, but booking of forex rates and trade transactions are also being done by corporates through mouse clicks. You will be surprised, more than 65% of all import letters of credit are being opened digitally by our corporate customers. This was unimaginable before Corona times. Similarly, digital lending has become a norm rather than exception. End-to-end digital credit is being afforded not only to individuals but also for SMEs. Many banks have launched schemes for eligible customers. You may visit their sites to know more about it. Earlier, people were okay with phygital, okay, part of your banking transaction journey you have covered through digital mode, and later you visit a brick and mortar structure, a branch, and then you finish your transaction. But now, not only digital, people are asking for contactless channels. I'm sure many in my audience are already making payments in physical stores through QR code scan or just by tap and go, tapping the card or even your mobile. Till 2 years back, bank had not imagined the work from home was possible by its employees. But pandemic has taught us that it is not only possible, but it is also a cost-effective option, a better option. And productivity-wise also, we are doing much better. Exponential growth in digital transactions have also provided a fertile ground to the cyber criminals and fraudsters. Banks are deploying various measures to stop this menace, but we cannot do it all alone. We need support of your customers. So let me tell you where all we need your support. Please do not share your card, PIN, OTP, CVV, or online banking credentials with anyone. Do not click on unknown links received on mobile or email. Do not look for customer care or bank branch number on a search engine. Do not download apps, for example, AnyDesk app, so that give control of your mobile to anyone. Do not fall prey to social engineering traps. They will tell you about freebies. They'll tell you about some insurance policy which you had taken some 10 years back and payment is due. So they will ask for your credentials, your Aadhaar ID, with your card number, so that they can credit money in your account, which actually is not true. They are just applying those social engineering skills to con you. Beware of cyber frauds. See, digital is good friend, but then one must be aware of do's and don'ts. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening me out, and see you later sometime again. Okay, bye bye.